Here's an anecdote that I want to tell before I start. One of my best friends lives in Washington, D.C., and earlier this year I went to visit him. I also got the chance to explore much of the city on my own, on buses and the subway system, which is frankly one of the best in the country. However, when I told my friend that I rode the city bus to meet up with him, he acted very shocked. He told me that the DC Metro bus was full of homeless people, and the hostel that I stayed at was also in not a very safe area. Well, not surprisingly, my friend can be described as from the upper class, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have another Chinese friend who also would just avoid transit and Uber everywhere whenever visiting another city. But this anti-transit sentiment really made me think. Is safety really the number one issue that is hindering the development of public transit in the US? This is really not something that the progressive urbanists typically talk about, so please hear me out.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
America used to be a country built on public transit. It once had the most extensive rail and streetcar networks in the entire world, until the car and airline industry took over and fundamentally changed the way people travel. Now, however, urbanists and local leaders are doing everything they can to bring back public transit. We have data shown that transit ridership has been steadily recovering since the pandemic. But yes, obviously, my channel is called Conservative Geographer, and I'd expect to have many rural, suburban audience members who haven't experienced much public transit in their lives, and they aren't really into this vision of having the government providing us mobility services in which we would have to share space with strangers. You either stare into each other's eyes awkwardly or start scrolling on your phone to kill time. I mean, your government already pays for your highways and traffic signs, repairs potholes, and largely subsidizes the aviation industry. Would you like these things canceled too?
No, God! No, God, please, no!
By the way, if you're an urban planning or transit enthusiast, but you're just not fully on board with the mainstream urbanists who are either too idealistic about things or too left-wing, my channel can be a voice of reason with alternative, practical solutions. But it is true that, generally speaking, there has been a lot of stigma around public transit among the American people, mostly about the public safety aspect of it. But they're not wrong. I mean, look at this. Plenty of movies and TV shows portray crimes on subways. A famous one being the 2019 Joker movie, which was a hit, where Arthur was bullied by some Wall Street guys and ended up killing them. But subway train shootings do happen every year, especially in places like Chicago and New York. Plenty of homeless people live inside dirty train cars used for decades, while platform walls have graffiti on them. Mentally ill criminals push passengers into the tracks so that the victims get hit by oncoming trains. In August 2025, there was the infamous case of a female Ukrainian refugee stabbed and killed by a black guy on a Charlotte tram, totally unprovoked, while bystanders did nothing to help. The list goes on and on. Personally, I've also experienced many transit systems in major American cities. Thankfully, nothing bad has happened so far, and I would rate Los Angeles, Chicago, and Philadelphia's subway systems as the most horrible, while my experiences in DC, Seattle, and Miami were among the best. And I need to try Bay Area's BARTs someday, as well as the Atlanta Metro. I've heard a lot of great things about them. So, if transit is unsafe to ride, it is going to strengthen this stigma and prevent more potential passengers from using the service, making it even less possible if we want to push for any further transit projects forward. Because nowadays, getting any infrastructure project done in the US is going to take enormous time and money, while controversies and lawsuits are unavoidable. It truly is unfortunate. Both the left and right should agree on this. Okay, so say you're a transit proponent. Now you can absolutely question me. Hey, these are anecdotal cases, or cases that only got under the spotlight of the media because all the media does is report on negative stories. Where is the proof that public transit in the US is systemically unsafe? So, I was able to find the 2024 National Transit Summaries and Trends document published by the Department of Transportation, US DOT. In this report, quote, in 2024, there were a total of 2,329 injuries reported, resulting from assault events, 14 of which occurred on small or rural transit systems. There were 49 total homicide fatalities reported in 2024, In 2024, there was 1 injury from an assault for every 3.25 million passenger trips and 1 fatality for every 154.5 million passenger trips. End of quote. These numbers might seem fine. Your risk of having anything happen to you is only 1 in a few million. Then why are we still sticking to this rhetoric of American transit being unsafe? Okay, first, we have to admit that these numbers by themselves are pretty vague, and some caveats do exist. First, crimes on transit tend to be underreported. This very DOT report admits that. Sometimes someone might have harassed you in a minor way, or you lost your personal item and you either forgot to call the police or thought it was too petty. There's no way we would know the real number, but it's possible to make inferences from studies, such as this one on San Jose State University students, where researchers found that a whopping 63% of respondents report having been harassed. It is regarding sexual harassment. Another is the geographic distribution of crimes that happen. Just like any crime study, sometimes you may see a small overall number of crimes in a city despite high concentrations in certain neighborhoods. New York may seem like a really safe city on paper, given it is averaged. But with its enormous size and population, there absolutely exist neighborhoods, like some in the Bronx and Brooklyn, that can be just as dangerous and gang-infested as places like Memphis or St. Louis. The reasoning is the same for transit. The vast majority of transit services across the country are safe, but violent crimes repeatedly take place in certain inner-city ones. Even where there's not much crime, people often just don't feel safe because of the dirtiness and the homeless people, and therefore avoid hopping on the bus or train. So as you see, there is still some truth in this argument that riding transit in America is not safe. Now, what do we do about it? In the US, rail transit with the highest ridership tends to be on the East Coast, the Rust Belt, and California. Some infrastructure is indeed really old and outdated, with too much trash, graffiti, and urine around stations, too much to be cleaned. However, I believe in the broken windows theory very strongly and the importance of environmental design, so this is a non-negotiable in improving transit safety. There's a reason why Washington, D.C.'s metro system is constantly rated as one of America's cleanest and safest, as well as the beloved architecture, because it is thoughtfully designed and it stresses the power of how the perceived environment impacts people's minds. And if you don't have the finances for rebuilding stations, or even just basic cleanups, local governments, I say they can absolutely get volunteers or jail inmates to do the work. I don't see anything wrong with that. The same thing goes for train cars or buses. Many rail fans get emotional when they see their favorite classic trains get retired. I totally understand that sentiment too. But it is just common sense that newer, cleaner subway trains will make people feel safer and think that America has not abandoned its public transit. One final thing is that many progressives believe that transit should be free in order to boost ridership. While this idea itself is fine, as long as authorities can keep up with the funding for operations, we shall see on that. But you must find ways to make sure that buses and trains don't end up becoming the homes for the homeless. Then you're going to prioritize constant police patrols to combat that, install more surveillance cameras, then homeless shelters, and then enforcement on drug trafficking because, addiction is the major driver of homelessness and many other public issues. But these things are basically black holes sucking taxpayer money endlessly for many decades. Who would have thought that enforcing everyone paying a small fee to get on the bus can largely prevent that? If you've liked this video and you're interested in urbanism and geography, but you find yourself not fully ideologically aligned with the mainstream progressive narratives on these issues, please hit that like and subscribe button.